Who knew tea could be so dangerous? Good afternoon, people of YouTube. Welcome back to Maverick Baking. If you're new here, my name is Kelly and this is your home of junk food and other stuff. I figured that it had been a little while since I did a little Q&A session with you guys, or AMA, whatever the kids are calling it these days. Anyway, it's about time I took some of your questions and answered them so that you guys can get to know this idiot a bit better. So let's do it. Okay, so the first question comes from Jennifer Lou, and she is asking, what is your favourite snack in a British supermarket? That is a very broad question. I mean, anyone who watches the channel or knows me personally knows that I have a massive sweet tooth. Anything sugary, it's my thing. My favourite snack? Honestly, even though it might sound a little bit boring, my favourite snack is going to be something sweet, and it's either going to be a sharing bag of some kind of Cadbury's chocolate, whether it be Twirl Bites, Whisper Bites, chocolate buttons, or a packet of Dean's shortbread. It's very common, it's a little bit old-fashioned, but honestly there is nothing better and nothing more satisfying around that kind of 3-4 o'clock lull than a good chunky buttery bit of shortbread. It might just be where I'm from, but honestly, if you're from outside of the UK, you need to get yourself some Cadbury's chocolate and you need to get yourself some shortbread. Okay, so Sam, either Chapel or Chappelle, I think it's gonna be Chappelle, I'm not sure. He asked, are you musical? Do you play an instrument or sing? Love your videos and I love your accent. Well, Sam, you are literally the only person that has ever or will ever tell me that. My accent generally isn't favourable because Aberdonian accents are pretty bad. Okay, am I musical? I like to think so. I am very much into music. I'm into quite a wide variety of music, mostly of the kind of metal or heavy rock alternative genre. I'm very much like punk rock. I like old school metal stuff, but I'll listen to anything. You can, you know, give me some Britney Spears and I'm equally as excited about that, to be honest. As for singing, I took music classes at school and stuff, so I know how to sing. Whether it sounds any good in my Scottish accent, I have no idea. And instrument-wise, I actually played drums for about 4 years. I kind of gave up just because I didn't really have time, you know, with school and exams kind of piled up upon me, and it's a really inconvenient instrument to play. You know, a guitar, whether it's acoustic or electric, it's easy to store and it's easy to travel with. Drums are just a nightmare. Even though I loved playing them, it's great exercise, it's great fun, it's a great stress relief. It's just, it's not convenient. If I ever have the space and I'm in a fairly accepting neighbourhood, I would love to get a kit again and play, but at the moment it's just, I don't really have the time, sadly. I did try to learn the guitar. I even bought myself a cheap Fender Stratocaster and tried to learn through an app on my phone. It was bad. You can imagine, I think I stuck to it for something like 2 weeks and it was just really bad. It's difficult. Like drums, it's very easy to at least become mildly proficient at hitting things and making it sound good. A guitar, there are far too many fingers going on. They're far too like having to shoot, nah, too much effort. So on Instagram, the Chocolate Smiths, whom I have reviewed products from before, they asked me what got me into baking. It must have been about 8, 9, even 10 years ago now? 9 years ago, I think. We got a new oven. Mum and Dad got a new oven. And I'd never cooked before because my dad doesn't enjoy cooking and my mum doesn't enjoy cooking. Cooking to me was just something, it was a means to an end, you know, you made food when you needed to eat, that was about it. None of my family had ever been bakers or even particularly exciting cooks. They just weren't that interested in it, which is fair enough. But Mum and Dad got a new oven and it was a Neff oven, so it was like a nice oven. And, you know, I'd never really paid any attention to the oven before, but it came, as ovens and microwaves and stuff always do, with a little booklet. And was just flicking through it. What an exciting life I led. So I was flicking through this and there was a recipe for a Victoria sponge. And this is basically the quintessential British cake, if you're unfamiliar with it. Plain, kind of buttery, sweet cake with jam and sometimes cream in the middle. It's delicious. It's really boring and quite simple, but it's good. I'd had them before, you know, I'd had birthday cakes before, but we made it. Mum and I made this cake and my mind was just blown. And that sounds so stupid over such a simple and basic cake, but I'd never tasted anything like it. I'd only ever tasted shop-bought cake, or maybe even like a mouthful or two of maybe something that someone else's mum had made. You know, my best friend's mum makes fantastic chocolate cake and fantastic like Mars bar crispy type things. So that was the extent I'd known of baking. So when we tasted this cake, it was literally like, I couldn't deal with how good it was. It was fresh, it was moist, it was fluffy. It actually had a flavor that wasn't just an icing or jam. And it was like, oh my God. You know, I could make something like this with these two useless little hands. So from there, you know, obviously I was still at school. I didn't have much time to kind of experiment that much. But I made that cake again, and we made it again, and we made it for birthdays, and we made it for special occasions. And then it was like, what else can we do? So then it was lemon cakes and chocolate cakes, and you know, it just kind of evolved, and then it was onto biscuits and bread and pastry, and basically it's just slowly kind of blossomed from then. And over the past 2-3 years, I've been honing skills and just wanting to share them with other people instead, because I feel like baking can be very confusing, and it's nice to have someone who can hold your hand and just say, you know, don't worry about this, just do it, you know? So basically, too long didn't read version is an oven manual got me into baking. Shargiel_2 says, you are cute, I don't want to ask you anything. Which would have been fine, but it was then followed up with, how old are you, by the way? Which might just be my favourite thing. It's like he's just suddenly realised, what if she's 15 years old? Anyway, Shargiel, thank you, very nice of you. I am, as of yesterday, 23 years old. I was born in 1995, the year of Wonderwall and probably something to do with the Spice Girls, but yes, 23 years old and getting wrinklier by the day. Next up we have Nate Peterson. You may know him from Food Review UK, or Frock. He has asked, if England equals English and Scotland equals Scottish, why doesn't Holland equal Hollish? The only possible response I could give to that is that I also don't think New Zealand equals New Zealish. But maybe it should. Moving on, Slice Ate That on Instagram asked, if you could only eat one savoury food and one sweet food for the rest of your life, what would those two things be? This is a nightmare of a question. If it's a savoury food, as much as I like to be as ethical as I can to animals and the environment, it's got to be cheese. You know, I thought maybe it would be bread, but it's got to be cheese. Like, I'm presuming I can have more than one variety of the thing I'm choosing. You know, cheddar, brie, Edam, parmesan, blue cheese, Crowdy. Just, there's so many kinds of cheese. They're delicious, they're high in protein, cheese is life when it comes to savoury foods. I could bin crisps, I could probably bin peanut butter quicker, which I know is quite shocking, but yeah, it's got to be cheese on the savoury front. As for the sweet food, for sweet foods, it really has to be chocolate. There's never a time of day I don't want it. I could eat it morning, noon and night, white milk, dark, with or without bits in it, cheap, expensive, whatever. It's my favourite flavour, it's one of my favourite ingredients, I just love it. Okay, next up we have Stelio. Now this is either Muratidis, or Muratidis, I'm not really sure, but he's lovely, he's very loyal on Instagram and stuff. He has asked, uni life and baking, how do you find the time? Don't sleep, basically. I don't have a lot of time, basically. You know, I'm at university. At the moment, we're about to start our Christmas break, but I'm at university and work in an office 5 days a week. That's as well as keeping up with the blog, with social media, and with YouTube, and remembering to bake, eat, sleep, and breathe somewhere in between those. So yeah, it's a busy life, but you know, you get what you work for. Sleep less and get off your phone. Sounds really cliche and boring, but it works. Unless, of course, you're using your phone to visit maverickbaking.com. Next up, we have Emma J. Gray asking, what is your favourite restaurant in Aberdeen? This is a hard one because my 2 favourite restaurants in Aberdeen have recently closed. So that's a thing. Aberdeen is going through a pretty rough time economically because there's been a downturn in oil prices and there have been a lot of job losses in the city. Some things have done really well on the back of this and some have really crashed. So I'll give you my top 5 instead, in no particular order. Melt, which is a grilled cheese shop or a cheese toasty shop here in Aberdeen. The things that the woman who owns that shop can do with cheese and bread are incredible. Also would recommend the Sushi Box. It's in the Aberdeen market, kind of hidden away from everything on the bottom floor, owned by lovely women who just make delicious sushi, and it's so affordable. It's fantastic. I would also give a mention to Muchacho. It's my favorite Mexican takeaway. Their food's just consistently good and they've got a great selection and it's cheap. Maggie's Grill would be up there, which is like American style soul food. Huge portions and it's always great. The last mention I would probably give would be to Rendezvous at Nargileh. It's in the West End of Aberdeen. Again, it's popular, but not that well known, if that makes sense. It's a kind of Greek-Turkish restaurant and the food is so good. I think those would be my top 5. Katie Ferguson Rush asks, favourite food bloggers / Instagrammers? This is quite difficult because I follow far too many people on Instagram. Instagram, I would say Local Kitchen, I think she's called. She makes incredible pastries and pies. She makes these like gorgeous hyper symmetrical desserts and everything that would just take way too much time and effort for the average person to do. Really talented and really creative. The other would probably be, purely again on aesthetics, is Bianca Zapatka, I think her name is. I believe she's German or is based in Germany. She's a food blogger, but her Instagram feed is just gorgeous. Every single picture is like a masterpiece. Everything's so well positioned. There's ingredients scattered all around it. The lighting's great. She's got a gorgeous feed if you like proper food porn pictures. As for bloggers, main shout would have to go to Sally's Baking Addiction because she is just the consistent queen of baking content on the internet, like 100%. She posts a new recipe something like every 2 days. The recipes always work, they're delicious, they're creative, and her archives are so, basically if you need a recipe, she probably has it. The other shout for food blogger would probably have to go to Half Baked Harvest. She's also very good on Instagram. The recipes are great, they're really creative, but they're also quite rustic, and the photos are always just beautiful and make you so hungry. Yeah, I think those would be my favourites. Slice Ate That again asked, what is the funniest or biggest baking fail you have ever experienced? Now, I can tell you that at the time, they are never funny. The biggest one was probably when I saved some bananas until they were like perfectly ripe to make this gorgeous, huge banana cake. So we're talking in a big Bundt tin, huge round thing. So I made this cake and it was fine, beautifully baked, smelled amazing. I took it out of the oven and I'd forgotten to grease the tin. So as you can imagine, it was entirely stuck around all of the sides and the base. There was no way it was coming out with anything other than a spoon. And even though my poor mother, who was now desperate to eat this cake, was so wanting to try it, I was so angry, I threw the whole thing away. I'm not proud of it. I hate that I did that now, but honestly, in the moment, you're just so frustrated. I'm a very competitive person and I like to be good at what I'm good at, if that makes sense. So when when that went wrong, there's just a whole new level of anger. So I wasn't having it. I couldn't have anyone see that I'd made this big an error that's so basic. So the whole thing was binned. I know. The funniest, in hindsight, not at the time, was when I accidentally dropped a loaf of bread into a towel rack. Now, this is a bit strange. I was proving this bread dough. It was an orange and cranberry loaf. I was really excited about it because it smelled delicious. And of course, bread always proves more effectively in a warm place. So I put it in the cupboard at home where we used to dry towels and stuff like that, because the boiler was in there, so it was always warm. So I put it on a greased tray inside this cupboard. Now, I'd obviously left it at an angle because when I came back after an hour, it had slid off. This huge lump of dough had slid off of the oiled tray and straight onto some towels. So not only were the towels now greasy and covered in dough, but the dough was covered in like cotton fibers. So raging, basically. I was so angry because I think it was supposed to be part of our dinner that night. I took this lump of bread out. I went into the kitchen and I just threw it at full force. I mean, at full force isn't much with my puny arms, but I threw it at full force into the sink. No real reason for it other than pure violent anger. And yeah, basically after 5 minutes I calmed down, I took it out of the sink, patted it dry, reshaped it, proved it again, and baked it, and it was absolutely fine. It was just, yeah. I was a drama queen. I'm guessing this person is using the name under the Scottish pronunciation, so it's spelt Finzine_Matty. But if this is the Scottish pronunciation, it should be Fingin_Matty. I'm not sure. Anyway, Fingin_Matty asks, a life without one or the other, beef or cheese? I feel like this is a joke question. I don't know why. I feel like it's a sex question that I don't understand or something like that. But it might be completely serious. It just seemed a bit weird. And this is quite an easy one for me because I don't eat beef. Out of a kind of ethical thing, while I do still eat chicken and pork occasionally and fish, I don't eat beef. Because I have dairy, I like to balance out with the fact that I don't eat cows. It probably sounds really weird, and if you're vegan, you probably hate me right now. But yeah, on that basis, I can quite easily forget about beef and live with my true love, cheese, forever. Okay, and the final question for this video, because I don't want anyone sitting here for half an hour, who has the time? So the final question comes from Nicola008, and she asks, how do you find the time to bake so often? Love your posts. Thanks, Nicola. Basically, I need a constant and steady stream of sweet goods in my life. And baking things often doesn't require me to leave the house, so it can be a real means to an end in that sense. As you might be able to see back there, I have a whole tub full of gingerbread men that I made the other day, and I like making banana bread, I like making muffins, cookies, biscuits, cheesecakes. Basically, if I want something, the best way to fulfill the craving is to make it. As for the time, like I said before, I'm a very busy person, but you'll realize when you are a busy person that on a Sunday morning, even though you could spend an extra 2-3 hours blissfully in bed, you could also use those 2 or 3 hours to perfect choux pastry in your pajamas. So that's what I do. Mostly bake at weekends, but also evenings, even nighttime, post 9 o'clock is actually quite a kind of relaxing time to bake. Just again, don't sleep much and try not to look at your phone too much. That's my rule for finding time to do anything. So that's all I'm going to cover in this Q&A video. If you would like me to answer more of your questions, do leave them in the comments below because I love doing things like this so you guys can get to know your favourite neep even more than you already do. That's all I have for you guys today. I will be back very soon with some more festive food reviews given the time of year. Until then, I'll see you next time.